to his advantage that that he didn't grow up in this state, and maybe he doesn't actually know what all is involved, and very well could be. You know, sometimes young players just go out there and play, and he certainly didn't have anything to lose. As I said, he made some mistakes, but for the most part, he competed and showed some toughness, and that's really what we needed. And I said this when we had the press conference at the stadium before we came out here, that, you know, Dax gave us a lot this year, and I'm not trying to justify anything, but he went through a tough stretch, and we appreciate what he brought to the table, and he took a lot of hits and continued to fight. And one thing we'll never know is how could have Rudolph held up if he would have gone through the same, for lack of a term, beating that Dax went through. We'll never know. Question comes up a lot, but in moving forward, we're excited about where we're at. We're still playing a young offensive line, but they've practiced well. Receivers are getting adjusted to Mason somewhat, and we need Dez and Rennie to make some plays for us running the football.
Mike, well, Chris Peterson personally said he didn't have as much fun as he wanted to last night. He said you never can talk to the people you want to talk to at one of those events. But he had an interesting observation. He said, I wouldn't mind if our staffs or Coach Gundy and I got together later on after the bowl game, because we've looked at their whole season. They've looked at ours. I'd sure like to know what they think, and I hope maybe they'd like to know some of the things we thought. We're looking at a whole season as another coach.
You know, I don't want to put myself in a category with certain coaches, but there's a number of similarities between Coach, myself, his staff, our staff, and kind of the way that we've progressed through this year, and really over his last 5 or 6 years of his career and kind of my career. I don't ever look at bowl records, but he's 5-3 and I'm 5-3. He's won a Fiesta Bowl, and I won a Fiesta Bowl. Their offense, their defense, their special teams, when you look at them and you look at us, there's a lot of similarities in, okay, we have to try to find a way to manufacture some yards, manufacture some points. And I've watched him for a number of years because he's on at like 11 o'clock at night till 1 in the morning back home. And so I've had a chance to watch him. And then they played all those Wednesday and Thursday night games in, is at the WAC. And when he was in that conference, they would always be on late at night, or they would be on Thursday. And so I'm sure he's referring to, he's enjoyed seeing some of the things that we've done, and you know, I've seen some of the things that he does, which is can be an issue for a team. It takes a lot of work to prepare for this team, and hopefully we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's, because they do a lot of things from a scheme standpoint that give them a chance to win.
What was Texas? Was that the low point? Is that the point at which you said? Because I remember after the game you said, "I think we're getting better," and I think all of us were like, I mean, was that kind of the point at which you thought? I don't know. I mean, did you ever have any doubt you would turn it around? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yes, this season, just because we were so young, and we made the transition where we moved Zach Veach from guard to tight end. He is a tight end. He's not an offensive lineman, but in the situation that we were presented this year, we had to move him at guard, and we went through that stretch, and particularly at Texas with those two inside players, and you know, they would just come off and grab Zach and just throw him down, run in the backfield and hit Dax. And so what I meant after that game, and I tried to be as honest as possible in the post game, there's just nothing we could do. I mean, you know, it's like being 200 out from the green, and you got to hit it up on the green to putt to tie it, and all you have in your bag's a 7-iron. I mean, it's going to be really hard to play it on your back foot and hit it down low and drive it 200 yards. And, well, I shouldn't say that. Some of these guys can do it now. Say a wedge. A lot of guys can hit a 200-yard 7-iron. Not in this room, but
Ricky Fowler's not in it.
Yeah, that's right. But the point is that's where it was tough for me, because it's not as enjoyable to be in a situation where if you're scheming and drawing plays up and you are getting ragdolled a little bit, and it's difficult to have success. So we decided to make the move and put in a freshman at guard and move Veach outside, and that helped us some. maybe should have done it earlier. But Zach has always given us such effort that you think at times a great effort's going to help you. But when you play guys that were as good as they were, it was just really difficult.
And then you go to Baylor, and suddenly
Play a little better.
for the first time in a long time, it looked like
An offense.
Yeah,
That's right.
Was that?
Our guys played good, and Mason made a few throws and scrambled and converted a couple first downs. And that one was scary because there was 12 minutes to go in the first quarter and we were behind 14-0. And so then you start thinking it's going to be really difficult to dig out of this. But our guys from that point on, actually played well enough to be a decent football team during the season. The open week that we had prior to Oklahoma helped us considerably. Gave us a chance to work the freshman lineman, get Zach back at tight end, and let a freshman quarterback get more reps. I joked with Hoover about at Kansas State. He asked me if bowl practice would help, and I told him that didn't matter. I figured he'd fire back at me, but he didn't even fire back at me. It wasn't even any fun. It's like he felt bad.
You beat him down at that point.
Yeah, it's like he felt bad for me. But we've had 12 practices now. And you have to realize 12 practices essentially is a spring ball, because in the spring we get 15. One of them's a game, and that's recess for the most part. The one before the game is really light, so you only get 13 practices. We've already had 12 now, and they've been fairly heavy practices. So we got another spring, and hopefully it's helped our players improve in a lot of different areas.
Did you see this coming though for Mason? Did you see that coming mid-season that he's starting to make a move a little bit?
It's interesting, John, and you hate to ever talk about a player, especially a guy that's only played 2 games.
Right.
We like where he's at. We like his development. He still makes mistakes, as I've said. Most guys do when they're at that point in their career. But the word on the street is that for whatever reason in his last 2 or 3 years, that he played better in games than he actually would in practice a lot of times. And you hear that. We hear that a lot in recruiting, that he's a gamer. Well, that's not what you want to see. I want to see somebody do it in practice, and that way I know that give him a chance to be a gamer. And he's played fairly well in games. One of the things, John, that made it difficult for us was we were very average up front this year and immature. So in practice, when our twos were out there, it wasn't pretty. So how do you tell if a quarterback can develop if he's behind a group of guys that are learning and struggling and they can't protect him? He's running for his life. So that contributed. Now my wife said, we'll put him out there with the ones and see what he can do. Well, you can, but at that point we had J.W. Walsh. And so J.W. was running with the ones. Dax was catching the twos. Mason was getting part of the twos and working with the freshmen. Because, like most of us, if J.W. is healthy, you're not going to burn a year on Mason. And so that's the way we had to plan. You can't just increase reps for everybody and say we're going to practice another 30 minutes, or then you're really going to throw your team back based on legs and getting beat up late in the year. So it's been a very unusual season from that standpoint. Had to make some adjustments when J.W. went down, because Dax obviously is a completely different quarterback than J.W. was. So we had to make adjustmts. That set us back a couple weeks. You'd like to think it wouldn't, but as you look back, it really did. People say, well, you should have prepared for it prior to that. You can't. We're preparing for J.W. to play in games. I can't prepare for something to happen to him and get somebody else ready to play. That doesn't make much sense. So,
how would you describe the